The golden facade Sophia Delaney had never imagined herself draped in Givenchy gowns or dining with senators. 5 years ago, she had been perfectly content teaching literature to high school students in a small coastal town, spending her evenings grading papers and walking along the shore. Her life had been simple but fulfilling, until Wesley Bennett walked into the local bookshop where she worked part-time on weekends. Wesley, with his confident stride and perfectly tailored suit, had seemed out of place among the dusty shelves. He wasn't just visiting. He was buying the entire building to convert part of it into his newest business venture. But instead of focusing on real estate that day, he found himself captivated by the quietly eloquent woman who recommended obscure Russian novels and spoke about characters as if they were old friends. "I've never met anyone who talks about books the way you do," he had told her, leaning against a shelf of classics. "It's like you've lived inside each story." 3 months later, he proposed. 6 months after that, Sophia traded her modest apartment for Wesley's penthouse overlooking the city. Her collection of well-loved paperbacks now sat somewhat awkwardly on imported mahogany shelves, beside first editions she was almost afraid to touch. "You deserve everything beautiful in this world," Wesley would say, presenting her with another gift she hadn't asked for. Diamond earrings, a designer handbag, a sports car she was nervous to drive. At first, Sophia had been dazzled by Wesley's world. The parties at their penthouse drew politicians, celebrities, and business moguls. Wesley would proudly introduce her as the woman who changed everything, and people would smile politely, clearly wondering what this unassuming former teacher had done to capture one of the country's most eligible bachelors. Sophia often wondered the same thing herself. Tonight, as she stood before the full-length mirror in their bedroom, Sophia ran her hands over the slight curve of her stomach. 4 months pregnant, and she still hadn't fully processed that she was going to be a mother. The pregnancy hadn't been planned. In fact, Wesley had seemed surprised when she told him, momentarily losing the composure he carefully maintained. "That's wonderful," he had said, recovering quickly, but something in his eyes had shifted, as if recalculating some complex equation. Sophia selected a simple emerald dress from her closet, one of the few evening gowns that still fit comfortably over her changing body. Dr. Josephine Harlow had advised her to avoid anything too constricting, given the complications they'd discovered during her last checkup. "The placenta is positioned lower than we'd like," Dr. Harlow had explained, her kind eyes serious behind stylish glasses. "It's not immediately dangerous, but we need to monitor you closely. Stress could complicate things further." Sophia hadn't told Wesley about the complications. He was in the middle of his biggest business merger yet, and she didn't want to add to his stress. Besides, he had been increasingly critical lately, commenting on her letting herself go even before the pregnancy began to show. "Is that what you're wearing tonight?" Wesley's voice came from the doorway, startling her. He was already dressed in a custom tuxedo, his cufflinks catching the light as he adjusted his bow tie. "Yes," Sophia said, suddenly self-conscious. "Most of my formal dresses are too tight now." Wesley frowned, crossing the room to stand beside her. "The Thompsons will be there tonight, and Senator Reeves. This gala is important, Sophia." "I know," she said quietly. "Couldn't you wear the Valentino? The black one with the beading? It's more appropriate for an event of this caliber." Sophia touched her stomach. "It doesn't fit anymore." Wesley sighed, checking his watch. "We don't have time to argue about this. The car will be here in 10 minutes. He paused, looking her over once more. "At least wear the diamond necklace I bought you last month. It might elevate the look." As he left the room, Sophia turned back to the mirror. The woman who stared back at her looked nothing like the carefree teacher who once spent Saturdays recommending books to strangers. This woman's eyes held a weariness that no amount of expensive makeup could conceal. She reached for the diamond necklace in its velvet box, its weight heavy against her collarbone as she fastened it. The stones sparkled brilliantly against her skin, but somehow made her feel even more out of place in her own reflection. The intercom buzzed. Their driver had arrived. Sophia took a deep breath, smoothed her dress one final time, and went to join her husband. Tonight was the annual Children's Hospital Benefit Gala, an event Wesley had been talking about for weeks. The most influential people in the city would be there, and Wesley was determined to make an impression. What Sophia didn't know was that tonight would indeed make an impression, just not the kind Wesley had planned. Cracks in the crown. The limousine glided through evening traffic, its tinted windows separating the Bennetts from the ordinary world outside. Wesley tapped rapidly on his phone, occasionally pausing to take calls that couldn't wait despite the hour. Sophia gazed out at the city lights, remembering how magical they had once seemed. "Remember our first date?" she asked softly during a rare moment of silence. "That little Italian restaurant by the harbor?" Wesley glanced up, momentarily pulled from his digital world. Vaguely. The wine was decent, if I recall. "You told me about building your first company in your garage," Sophia continued. "How you slept on a cot for months because you couldn't afford both rent and equipment?" A ghost of a smile crossed Wesley's face. "Those were desperate times." "You seemed happier then," Sophia said, her voice barely audible over the purr of the engine. Wesley's expression hardened. "I was broke then, but proud of what you were building." He set his phone down, giving her a look that had become increasingly familiar, part impatience, part condescension. "And what exactly do you think I'm not proud of now, Sophia? The multi-million-dollar company? Our home? The charitable foundation that's hosting tonight's event?" Sophia touched the pendant at her throat. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" His tone carried a warning edge. "Just that you seemed more present then." She searched for the right words. "Less concerned with what other people thought." Wesley laughed, a sharp sound without humor. "That's the luxury of anonymity. When nobody knows who you are, nobody cares what you do." "Success comes with scrutiny, Sophia. Something you've never had to worry about." The words stung more than they should have. After all, he'd made similar comments before. When she'd chosen to leave teaching after their marriage, he'd called it a hobby, really, not a career. When she mentioned missing her old friends, he'd suggested they were probably just interested in her new connections. Small cuts, delivered with such casual precision that protesting them made her seem oversensitive. "You're right," she conceded, turning back to the window. "I don't understand what it's like to be you." Wesley returned to his phone. Conversation closed. Sophia pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling a flutter of movement. The baby, their daughter according to the latest ultrasound, seemed to sense her distress. "It's okay," she whispered, too softly for Wesley to hear. "We're okay." The limousine pulled up to the grand entrance of the Westbrook Hotel, where red carpet and velvet ropes created a pathway through photographers and onlookers. Wesley straightened his tie and fixed Sophia with an appraising look. "Remember, Caldwell's just donated $5 million to the pediatric research wing. Be sure to mention how impressed you were when you toured the facility." "But I haven't toured." "Just say you have," Wesley cut in. "Nobody's going to fact-check you. It's called being polite." Before she could respond, the driver opened their door, and Wesley transformed. His stern expression melted into the charismatic smile that had charmed investors and journalists alike. He stepped out first, then turned to offer Sophia his hand. Gesture performed perfectly for the cameras. Camera flashes momentarily blinded Sophia as she emerged from the car. She blinked rapidly, forcing a smile while maintaining her grip on Wesley's arm. The pregnancy had affected her balance, making the short walk in heels more treacherous than it should have been. "Mr. Bennett! Wesley! Over here!" Photographers called from behind the rope line. Wesley guided her forward, whispering through his smile, Stand up straighter. You're slouching. Inside the hotel's grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements. A string quartet played softly in one corner, providing elegant background music for the hundreds of guests in formal attire. Wesley, magnificent to see you. Harrison Caldwell, chairman of the hospital board, approached with his wife Victoria on his arm. Both were in their 60s, with the polished appearance of people who had been wealthy for generations. Harrison, Victoria, Wesley greeted them with practiced warmth. You've outdone yourselves with tonight's event. We can't take the credit, Victoria said. The committee did all the heavy lifting, but your donation certainly helped make it spectacular. Sophia noticed how Wesley stood taller at the mention of his contribution. Speaking of spectacular, he said, Victoria, that necklace is extraordinary. Victoria touched the cascade of diamonds and sapphires at her throat. Oh, this old thing, a 20th anniversary gift from Harrison. Exquisite taste. Wesley nodded appreciatively before turning to Sophia. My wife was just telling me how impressed she was when she toured the new pediatric wing. All eyes turned to Sophia, who felt her cheeks warm. Yes, it's remarkable what you've accomplished, she managed, hating the lie, but hating the thought of contradicting Wesley in public even more. We'd love to have you back for a proper tour, Harrison said kindly. Perhaps after the little one arrives? I understand congratulations are in order. Victoria's gaze dropped to Sophia's stomach. Oh my, I hadn't heard. When are you due, dear? Early, February, Sophia replied, grateful for the genuine warmth in the older woman's voice. How wonderful, Victoria smiled. Children change everything in all the best ways. Wesley's hand tightened on Sophia's waist. If you'll excuse us, I see the mayor has just arrived. We should pay our respects. As they moved away, Sophia caught a glimpse of Wesley's expression. The smile remained, but his eyes had cooled. You could have mentioned the advanced imaging equipment, he muttered. I specifically told you about it yesterday. I'm sorry, she said automatically. I forgot. Just try to be more engaged, Sophia. People notice these things. For the next hour, Wesley steered her from one important conversation to another. Sophia smiled and nodded, speaking when addressed directly but otherwise remaining the decorative, supportive wife Wesley preferred at these functions. The room grew warmer and more crowded, the noise level rising as more champagne was consumed. Sophia felt a sharp twinge in her lower abdomen, not quite pain, but uncomfortable enough to make her wince. Dr. Harlow had warned her to watch for any unusual sensations. I need to sit down for a moment, she whispered to Wesley during a break between conversations. Now? The auction is about to start, and we're seated at the commissioner's table. Just for a minute, I'm feeling a bit lightheaded. Wesley frowned. Fine, but meet me at table 7 before the auction starts. He strode away without looking back, immediately engaging a group of men in animated conversation. Sophia made her way to a small, relatively quiet alcove where a few chairs had been placed. As she sank gratefully into one, a familiar voice caught her attention. Mrs. Bennett, are you all right? Dr. Josephine Harlow stood before her, elegant in a navy blue gown that contrasted with her silver-streaked auburn hair. The doctor's presence at the gala shouldn't have been surprising. She was, after all, one of the hospital's most respected obstetricians. But Sophia felt a wave of relief at seeing a friendly face. Dr. Harlow. Yes, I'm fine. Just needed to sit for a moment. The doctor's experienced eyes assessed her. Any pain? Dizziness? Just a twinge, Sophia admitted. And the room is very warm. Dr. Harlow took the seat beside her. Your blood pressure was elevated at your last appointment. Have you been resting as I suggested? Sophia glanced toward the crowd where Wesley was now laughing with the mayor. As much as possible. Which means not enough. Dr. Harlow said gently. Sophia, I don't mean to alarm you, but with placenta previa, we need to be extremely cautious. Your health and your baby's health must come first. I know, it's just... Sophia hesitated. Wesley has so many obligations, important events. He needs me there. Dr. Harlow's expression softened with concern. Does he know about the complications? Sophia shook her head. He's been under so much pressure with work. I didn't want to worry him. The doctor leaned forward. Sophia, this isn't something you should handle alone. Your husband needs to understand the risks. Before Sophia could respond, Wesley appeared before them, his expression tense. The auction is starting. Everyone's being seated. His gaze flicked to Dr. Harlow, and he offered a perfunctory smile. Doctor, I didn't realize you were acquainted with my wife. Dr. Harlow is my obstetrician, Sophia explained, rising carefully from her chair. Ah. Wesley nodded absently. Well, we should take our seats. The commissioner is expecting us. Dr. Harlow stood as well. Actually, Mr. Bennett, I was just discussing some health concerns with your wife. Perhaps the three of us could speak privately for a moment? Wesley checked his watch. I'm sure it can wait until her next appointment. Tonight is rather important. Wesley, please, Sophia began, but he was already taking her arm. We're keeping people waiting, Sophia. His voice was pleasant, but his grip tightened, brooking no argument. Dr. Harlow's expression remained professional, but her eyes conveyed clear disapproval. I understand the importance of tonight's event, Mr. Bennett, but I would strongly advise... Thank you, Doctor. Wesley cut her off smoothly. We'll be sure to schedule a proper consultation soon. As Wesley led her away, Sophia caught Dr. Harlow's concerned gaze. The doctor gave her a small nod that somehow conveyed both reassurance and warning. The night, Sophia realized, was far from over, and the cracks in Wesley's golden facade were beginning to show. The Ambassador's Ball. The auction portion of the evening progressed with the polished efficiency of events where money flowed freely. Paddles rose for weekend getaways at mountain chalets, private concerts with renowned musicians, and artwork, donated by celebrated artists. Wesley bid aggressively on several items, winning a custom-designed watch and a week-long sailing trip that Sophia knew neither of them would have time to take. $30,000 for the watch, he whispered to her, after winning the bid. Limited edition, only 5 made. Julian Thorne has been trying to get one for months. Sophia nodded, recognizing the name of Wesley's chief business rival. The purchase wasn't about the watch at all. It was about winning something Julian couldn't. Having and throughout dinner, Wesley charmed their tablemates with practiced ease. He told his favorite anecdotes, the time he negotiated a deal on a golf course during a thunderstorm, the practical joke he'd played on a business partner in Tokyo. Stories Sophia had heard so many times she could recite them verbatim. Each tale positioned Wesley as the clever protagonist, the man who always came out on top. And your lovely wife has been supportive through all your ventures? Asked Patricia Langford, the commissioner's wife, directing her kind gaze toward Sophia. Before Sophia could answer, Wesley placed his hand over hers on the table. Sophia's been my greatest investment, he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. She keeps our home running smoothly so I can focus on business. And what did you do before you met Wesley? Patricia persisted, clearly trying to draw Sophia into the conversation. I was a literature teacher, Sophia replied, surprised by the surge of nostalgia that accompanied the words. High school level. I specialized in 19th century, ancient history now, Wesley interjected with a laugh. These days, Sophia's interests run more to interior design and planning our charity events, don't they, darling? Sophia felt a flush creep up her neck. The teaching feels like yesterday sometimes, she said quietly. I still miss the classroom. An awkward silence fell over the table. Wesley's grip on her hand tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well," said Commissioner Langford, clearing his throat, "education is a noble profession. My sister has been teaching for 30 years and wouldn't trade it for anything." Wesley quickly steered the conversation toward the commissioner's recent policy initiatives, and Sophia retreated into silence, taking small sips of water and ignoring the untouched food on her plate. The twinge in her abdomen had returned, more persistent now. As dessert was being served, the master of ceremonies announced that dancing would begin in the adjacent ballroom. Couples began to rise from their tables, moving toward the music that had grown louder, more festive. "Shall we?" Wesley stood, extending his hand to Sophia. She hesitated. "I'm feeling a bit tired. Perhaps we could just watch for a while." Wesley's expression darkened momentarily, then reset to a neutral smile. "Of course. You rest here. I promised Councilwoman Rivera a dance. Campaign contribution negotiation, you understand? Politics." He squeezed her shoulder and disappeared into the crowd. Sophia exhaled slowly, relieved for the momentary solitude. Across the room, she spotted Dr. Harlow in conversation with an elderly gentleman. The doctor caught her eye and gave a small, questioning nod. Sophia managed a reassuring smile in return, though the persistent discomfort told her she should probably be more concerned than she was allowing herself to be. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Ambassador Thomas Powell, a distinguished man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, stood beside the empty chair next to her. Sophia had met him at previous functions and always found him refreshingly genuine compared to most of Wesley's associates. "Please," she gestured to the chair. "It's good to see you, Ambassador." "Thomas, please," he insisted, settling beside her. "These formal titles make me feel like I should be wearing a sash and medals." His eyes crinkled with good humor. Sophia laughed, realizing it was her first genuine laugh of the evening. "How's retirement treating you?" "Busier than my working years, if you can believe it." He shook his head. "Consulting, board positions, grandchildren. No rest for the diplomatically weary." "But more fulfilling, perhaps?" "Without question." He studied her face. "And you?" "Wesley tells me congratulations are in order." Sophia's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. "Yes, a little girl, coming in February." "Children are life's greatest blessing," Thomas said, his expression softening. "My Elaine and I have 4 plus 7 grandchildren now." 7. That's wonderful." "It is," he agreed, then leaned closer. "Though between us, I think Elaine had the right idea when she insisted I slow down after our second was born. I was much like your Wesley back then, always chasing the next post, the next achievement. Nearly missed my son's first steps because I was negotiating fishing rights in some forgotten corner of the world." Sophia felt a pang of recognition. "How did you change?" Thomas considered the question. "Elaine gave me an ultimatum, actually. Said she didn't marry the State Department, she married me." He chuckled at the memory. "Smartest woman I've ever known. Took me a while to realize she was right." Before Sophia could respond, a commotion near the entrance to the ballroom caught her attention. A group of late arrivals was making a grand entrance. Among them Julian Thorne, Wesley's business rival, accompanied by a woman in a stunning red gown that seemed designed to command attention. Sophia felt rather than saw Wesley's reaction from across the room. His entire body tensed, his networking smile freezing in place as he spotted Julian. Within moments, he was making his way back to their table, his expression fixed in what Sophia had come to think of as his competitive mask. "Ambassador," Wesley nodded tersely as he reached them. "I see Thorne finally decided to grace us with his presence." "Good to see you, Wesley," Thomas replied evenly. "Your wife and I were just catching up." Wesley barely acknowledged the comment. his attention fixed on Julian, who was now greeting the mayor with exaggerated warmth. Looks like he brought Veronica Winters. She's the face of that luxury cosmetics line. Dating for about 3 months, if the gossip columns are accurate. Sophia recognized the calculating tone in Wesley's voice. In his mind, this was another competition. Who had the more impressive partner, the better connections, the greater influence in the room? "Sophia, darling," Wesley said suddenly, turning to her with renewed focus. "Let's join the dancing. The chamber has set up some excellent photo opportunities in the ballroom. Wesley, I don't think—" "Just one dance," he insisted, already pulling her to her feet. "The business journals are covering this event. It would be good to have some photos of us together." Sophia rose reluctantly, the movement sending another sharp twinge through her abdomen. She steadied herself against the table, drawing a concerned glance from Ambassador Powell. "Are you all right, my dear?" Thomas asked, half rising from his seat. "She's fine," Wesley answered before Sophia could speak. "Just stood up too quickly. Come, Sophia." As Wesley led her toward the dance floor, Sophia spotted Julian Thorne watching them, a slight smirk playing at his lips. Wesley steered her directly into Julian's line of sight, positioning them prominently on the dance floor. "Smile," Wesley murmured, drawing her into a dance hold that was picture-perfect but stiff. "Everyone's watching!" Sophia tried to focus on the music as Wesley guided her through practiced steps. The discomfort in her abdomen had increased to a dull ache, and she found herself counting the seconds, wondering how soon she could reasonably ask to sit down again. "Wesley," she whispered after a few minutes, "I really need to rest." "Just a few more minutes," he responded through his smile. "Julian's watching." "Please," she insisted, the pain making her voice sharper than intended. "Something doesn't feel right." Wesley's jaw tightened, but he maintained his public smile. "Fine, but try to look like you're enjoying yourself as we walk off. I don't want people thinking—" He was interrupted by Julian Thorne himself, who had smoothly maneuvered his partner to dance alongside them. "Bennett," Julian nodded, his tone falsely cordial. "Quite the event. Though I hear the hospital had to reduce the research budget to afford all this pageantry." Wesley's arm tightened around Sophia's waist. "Actually, Thorne, my donation specifically covered the event costs so that all proceeds could go directly to research. But I understand why you might be confused about how real philanthropy works." Julian's smile didn't falter. "How noble. Speaking of nobility, Sophia, you look absolutely comfortable tonight. Motherhood clearly agrees with you." The subtle insult hung in the air. Wesley stiffened beside her, and Sophia could practically feel his embarrassment radiating like heat. "Thank you, Julian," Sophia replied calmly. "Comfort is a luxury many people undervalue." Julian raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by her response. His companion, Veronica, laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to annoy Julian. "I like her," Veronica said, looking at Sophia with unexpected warmth. "She's real." Before Julian could respond, Wesley abruptly changed direction, steering Sophia away. "We were just leaving the floor," he said coldly. "Sophia's tired." Instead of returning to their table, Wesley guided her toward a quiet corner near the bar. His forced smile had vanished, replaced by tightly controlled anger. "What was that?" he demanded in a low voice. "What was what?" Sophia asked, genuinely. Dr. Harlow's intervention. Note: you asked for Part 5, but based on the story outline, we should continue with Part 4 first. I'll provide Part 4 now. Sophia regained consciousness to the sound of urgent voices and the sensation of being moved. She was lying on something soft, a couch or chaise, in what appeared to be a small private room off the main ballroom. The chandelier above swam into focus, its crystals glittering as her vision cleared. Blood pressure is 160/95. That's dangerously high. Dr. Harlow's voice was professionally calm, but carried an edge of urgency. We need to get her to the hospital immediately. Surely, that's an overreaction. Wesley's voice came from somewhere to her right, strained but still maintaining a veneer of control. She probably just needs to rest. Mr. Bennett? Dr. Harlow's tone sharpened. Your wife is experiencing a severe complication of pregnancy. This is not a matter for debate. Sophia tried to sit up, only to be gently restrained by Dr. Harlow's hand on her shoulder. Stay still, Sophia, the doctor instructed. The paramedics are on their way. Paramedics? Wesley's voice rose. Is that really necessary? I can drive her. Wesley. Sophia found her voice, weak but determined. Please listen to Dr. Harlow. His face appeared in her field of vision, his expression a complex mixture of concern, frustration, and something that looked unsettlingly like embarrassment. This is causing quite a scene, Sophia, he said quietly. Couldn't we handle this more discreetly? Dr. Harlow straightened, fixing Wesley with a look so coldly professional that it stopped his words mid-sentence. Mr. Bennett, may I speak with you privately for a moment? Without waiting for a response, she took Wesley's arm and led him to the corner of the room, just out of Sophia's earshot. A young woman in an evening gown, a nurse attending the gala, Sophia realized, had appeared beside her, checking her pulse and offering reassuring smiles. From her position on the chaise, Sophia could see but not hear the conversation between her husband and her doctor. Dr. Harlow spoke with clear intensity, her normally gentle demeanor replaced by forceful authority. Wesley's face cycled through expressions, dismissive at first, then defensive, and finally, as Dr. Harlow continued, speaking, something akin to alarm. Sophia closed her eyes, too exhausted to interpret the exchange. The pain had receded to a dull, persistent ache, but a new sensation had taken its place, a strange detachment, as if she were floating slightly above the scene, observing it from a distance. Mrs. Bennett? The nurse's voice pulled her back. The paramedics will be here in just a few minutes. Try to stay calm and breathe deeply. Sophia nodded, then tensed as she felt a warm wetness between her legs. Something's wrong, she whispered, panic rising in her throat. The nurse checked quickly, and her professional composure slipped momentarily. She turned and called across the room, Dr. Harlow, she's bleeding. What followed was a blur of activity. Dr. Harlow returned to Sophia's side, issuing crisp instructions to the nurse. Wesley stood frozen near the doorway, his face pale, all pretense of social poise abandoned. Is the baby? Sophia began, her voice breaking. We're going to do everything possible, Dr. Harlow assured her, though her expression remained grave. But right now my primary concern is you, Sophia. You're experiencing placental abruption. The placenta is separating from the uterine wall. It's why I've been so concerned about your blood pressure. The door burst open as paramedics arrived, with a stretcher. The room suddenly seemed crowded with efficient strangers in uniforms, speaking in technical terms and moving with practiced urgency. As they prepared to transfer her to the stretcher, Sophia reached out, searching for Wesley's hand. He stood apart from the activity, his expression stunned as if he couldn't quite process what was happening. Wesley, she called weakly. He seemed to snap back to awareness, moving awkwardly to her side. I'm here. Come with me, she whispered. Please. For a moment he hesitated, glancing toward the doorway where curious onlookers were beginning to gather. Then, something in his expression shifted. He took her hand, his grip firm for the first time that evening. Of course, he said, his voice rough. Of course I will. As the paramedics lifted the stretcher, Dr. Harlow leaned down to speak quietly to Sophia. You're in good hands now. I'll meet you at the hospital. Then, surprisingly, she turned to Wesley. "Mr. Bennett, a word before you leave." Wesley looked torn, glancing between Sophia on the stretcher and the doctor's stern face. "Go ahead," Sophia told him. "I'll be all right for a minute." Reluctantly, Wesley stepped aside with Dr. Harlow, while the paramedics prepared to move Sophia out. Though their voices were low, the room was small enough that fragments of their conversation reached Sophia's ears. "Didn't tell me," Wesley was saying, his voice defensive. "Irrelevant now," Dr. Harlow replied firmly. "What matters is that you understand." No idea the risk was so serious. The doctor's response was too quiet to hear, but whatever she said made Wesley's shoulders slump, his carefully constructed facade crumbling completely. The paramedics began to move the stretcher toward the door. Wesley broke away from Dr. Harlow mid-conversation and hurried to walk alongside, his hand finding Sophia's again. The journey through the ballroom became the nightmare scenario Wesley had seemingly feared all evening. All eyes turned to watch. Their procession, conversations halting, music continuing incongruously in the background. Sophia caught glimpses of shocked faces, heard murmurs of concern, saw camera phones discreetly lowered as they passed. Yet Wesley, who had spent the evening hyper-aware of every glance and whisper, now seemed oblivious to the spectacle they created. His attention remained fixed on Sophia, his expression stripped of its usual calculation. "I'm sorry," he said quietly as they reached the hotel entrance. "I should have listened." Before Sophia could respond, they were outside in the cool night air, the ambulance waiting with open doors. As the paramedics loaded the stretcher, Wesley turned to find Dr. Harlow had followed them out. "I'll be right behind you," she assured Sophia, then faced Wesley. "Mr. Bennett, there's something you should know before you go to the hospital." Wesley looked impatient to leave, but Dr. Harlow's tone brooked no argument. He stepped away from the ambulance, allowing the paramedics to finish securing Sophia inside. From her position, Sophia couldn't hear what Dr. Harlow said next, but she could see its impact. Wesley's face drained of color, his body going rigid with shock. The doctor continued speaking, her expression severe but not unkind, her hand eventually coming to rest briefly on Wesley's arm in what appeared to be a gesture of support, despite her evident disapproval. When Wesley finally climbed into the ambulance to sit beside Sophia, he looked like a different man from the one who had criticized her appearance just hours before. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled, his bow tie loosened, his eyes haunted. "What did she tell you?" Sophia asked as the ambulance doors closed. Wesley took her hand, his fingers trembling slightly. "Everything," he said hoarsely. "She told me everything you've been hiding." The weight of truth. The ambulance sped through the city streets, its siren clearing a path through late-night traffic. Inside, Sophia lay with monitors beeping around her and a paramedic checking her vitals. Wesley sat beside her, still holding, her hand, his thumb, absently tracing circles on her palm, a gesture of tenderness so long absent that it felt almost foreign. "How long have you known?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the siren. Sophia swallowed, finding her throat dry. "About the placenta previa?" 6 weeks. Dr. Harlow found it during my 5th-month ultrasound." 6 weeks, Wesley repeated, the words hollow. "And the risks? Did you know how dangerous?" He broke off, unable to finish. Dr. Harlow explained everything, Sophia admitted. The possibility of bleeding, of premature delivery, the need for reduced stress and activity. Wesley's face contorted. "Reduced stress? And yet you've been attending every event, every dinner, every function I asked you to?" He stopped abruptly, realization dawning. "Because I asked you to." The paramedic discreetly focused on adjusting equipment, giving them as much privacy as the confined space allowed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Wesley's question held no accusation now, only bewilderment. Sophia closed her eyes briefly, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. You were so focused on the merger. Every conversation. We had revolved around business, appearances, connections. There never seemed to be the right moment. That's not, Wesley began, then stopped himself. No, that's fair. I haven't been present. Not really. The ambulance swung around a corner, momentarily throwing Wesley off balance. He steadied himself, his grip on Sophia's hand tightening. But this is our child, Sophia, our daughter. His voice cracked on the word. Did you think I wouldn't care? The question hung between them, weighted with all the small dismissals and large neglects of recent months. All the times he'd cut her off mid-sentence to take a call. All the evenings he'd come home late without explanation. All the mornings he'd left before she woke. I think, Sophia said carefully, that I wasn't sure which would matter more to you, our daughter's health or your public image. The words landed like a physical blow. Wesley flinched, then sat back, releasing her hand. For several long moments, he was silent, his gaze fixed on some middle distance as the ambulance continued its urgent journey. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, stripped of its usual confidence, raw with an emotion Sophia hadn't heard from him in years. What kind of man have I become? He whispered. That my own wife would think that of me. It wasn't a question meant for her to answer, but Sophia found herself responding anyway. The kind who told a room full of people that his wife was being dramatic when she was potentially losing their child. Wesley closed his eyes, his face a mask of shame. I didn't know. Would it have mattered if you had? The paramedic interrupted before Wesley could answer. We're 2 minutes out from the hospital. Her blood pressure is stabilizing but still elevated. Wesley nodded mechanically, then turned back to Sophia. I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said quietly, but I swear to you, nothing matters more to me than you and our daughter. Sophia might have dismissed the words as another performance, another carefully crafted response, except for the tears now tracking silently down Wesley's face, tears he made no move to hide or wipe away. The ambulance pulled up to the emergency entrance with a final wail of its siren. Doors were flung open, and Sophia was whisked into the bright lights of the hospital, Wesley jogging alongside until a nurse firmly directed him to the registration desk. I'll find you, he promised as they were separated. Whatever happens, I'll be there. The next hours passed in a blur of examinations, ultrasounds, and medical consultations. Dr. Harlow arrived shortly after Sophia was admitted, taking charge of her care with calm efficiency. The diagnosis was confirmed: partial placental abruption, severe enough to require hospitalization but caught before it became catastrophic. The baby's heartbeat is strong, Dr. Harlow assured her as they reviewed the ultrasound. And the bleeding has slowed significantly. You'll need to remain on bed rest here for at least a week, possibly longer. After that, strict bed rest at home until delivery, which we'll schedule by C-section as soon as it's safe, probably around 36 weeks. Sophia nodded, relief making her lightheaded. And until then, we monitor. We wait. We keep you and this little one as calm and stable as possible. Dr. Harlow adjusted Sophia's IV line, which means no more charity galas, no more stress, and no more hiding medical realities from stubborn husbands. The gentle rebuke made Sophia smile weakly. He didn't take it well when you told him, did he? Dr. Harlow's expression softened. Actually, once the shock wore off, he asked all the right questions. He's been quite persistent with the nursing staff since you were taken back for tests. As if summoned by the conversation, a light knock sounded at the door of Sophia's private room. Wesley stood in the doorway, still in his tuxedo pants and dress shirt, though the jacket and bow tie were gone. He carried a small duffel bag and looked utterly exhausted. May I come in? He asked, uncharacteristic hesitation in his voice. Doctor. Harlow nodded. Briefly, Sophia needs rest, and visiting hours technically ended some time ago. She checked her watch. Though I suspect the nursing staff might make an exception for the man who just donated a new ultrasound machine to the maternal fetal medicine department. Wesley had the grace to look embarrassed. It seemed the least I could do, considering... He trailed off, glancing at Sophia. Dr. Harlow gathered her charts. I'll leave you two to talk. The nurse will be in shortly to check vitals. She paused, at the door. Mr. Bennett, remember what I said about keeping things calm? After she left, Wesley approached the bed cautiously, as if afraid Sophia might shatter at his presence. He set the duffel bag on a nearby chair. I stopped by the house, he explained. Brought some of your things. Comfortable clothes, your book, the lavender pillow spray you like. The thoughtfulness of the gesture, so unlike his recent behavior, brought unexpected tears to Sophia's eyes. Thank you. Wesley hovered uncertainly, then perched on the edge of the visitor's chair. How are you feeling? Better. Tired. She managed a small smile. Embarrassed about causing a scene at the gala after all. Don't. Wesley's voice was sharp with self-recrimination. Don't even joke about that. Silence fell between them, filled with the soft beeping of monitors and the distant sounds of the hospital at night. I spoke with Dr. Harlow at length. Wesley finally said. She explained everything. The placenta previa, the risks, the restrictions you should have been following. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving it standing in uncharacteristic disarray. She also made it quite clear what she thought of me for not noticing my wife was in distress. It wasn't entirely your fault, Sophia offered. I hid it well. That's not the point. Wesley leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. The point is that you felt you needed to hide it at all, that I've been so consumed with appearances, with status, with winning, that my own wife couldn't tell me she was in danger. His voice broke. That our daughter was in danger. Sophia reached out and Wesley took her hand, clutching it like a lifeline. When did I become this person? He asked, the question seeming torn from somewhere deep within him. When did stock prices and business rivals and social standing become more important than the people I love? It happened gradually, Sophia said softly. So gradually I barely noticed until it was too late. Wesley looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. It's not too late, he said with sudden fierceness. It can't be. Before Sophia could respond, a nurse entered to check her vitals and adjust medications. Wesley moved aside but remained in the room watching the proceedings with newfound attention. Your blood pressure is improving, the nurse noted with approval. Keep resting and no excitement. She gave Wesley a pointed look that suggested Dr. Harlow had briefed the staff thoroughly. After she left, Wesley approached the bed again, this time sitting carefully on its edge. He took Sophia's hand once more, his thumb resuming its gentle circles on her palm. I was thinking about what you said earlier, he began hesitantly. About which would matter more to me, our daughter's health or my public image? Sophia started to speak, but Wesley shook his head. Let me finish, please. I need to say this. He took a deep breath. Tonight at the gala, after you collapsed, after they took you away on the stretcher, Harrison Caldwell came up to me. I was waiting for the elevator to follow the paramedics, and he put his hand on my shoulder. I thought he was going to say something polite, something meaningless about hoping you were all right. Wesley's gaze drifted to the window, where city lights twinkled in the darkness. Instead, he said, Go be with your wife, Bennett. Nothing else matters. And the look in his eyes, it wasn't pity or embarrassment. It was recognition. Like he'd been exactly where I was and had learned what mattered the hard way. Wesley turned back to Sophia, his expression stripped of all its usual masks and calculations. I've spent the last 5 years chasing success, status, recognition. Tonight, watching you being wheeled away, I realized none of it means anything. Without you. Without our family. His voice thickened. I don't care what anyone at that gala thinks of me anymore. I don't care if I never attend another networking event or close another deal. All I care